Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video.
Hello, all you dames and joes. I'm the Omni viewer, and I know why you're here. People always come here for the same reason. They want me to lay out the facts and tell them who's innocent and who's guilty. I'm no expert, mind you. I just call them as I see them, and the rest is out of my hands. That's a little something I learned from Philip Marlowe.
Yeah, I know Marlowe. Who in this town doesn't? He's the hard-boiled detective we all look up to. Truth be told, I'm more of an acquaintance than a close friend. I've read The Long Goodbye, and I've seen both The Big Sleep and The Lady in the Lake. You know, the classics. It's not much, but I'd say I've got a good handle on what makes him tick.
He's been out of the game for a while, though. I always assumed that meant his number was up, so you can imagine my surprise when I saw he had a new case in a picture simply entitled Marlowe. Funny, I never heard of it. Not surprising, Snazzy. This movie snuck in and out of theaters in February of 2023 with hardly anyone noticing. I knew it was coming and even I missed it somehow. But now that it's out on DVD and streaming, I figured I'd go meet up with Marlowe, have a few drinks, and catch up on this latest caper.
By latest, I mean it was back in 1939. Get this. Marlowe has some married blonde named Claire Cavendish stroll into his office so she can hire him to find her lover, a schmuck named Nico Peterson. He's a prop guy on B Pictures, likes making trips south of the border for rare items, or so he says, but she hasn't seen him in ages. Marlowe takes the case, but quickly learns that Nico's not so much missing as deceased, victim of a hit-and-run outside the Corbata Club, a swanky joint with exclusive clientele. The Cavendish broad doesn't buy it, though. She says she saw Nico alive after the night he bit the dust, and he's really just hiding for some reason. As usual, Marlowe finds himself up to his neck in trouble as the case just gets more and more complicated.
Sounds like a good old-fashioned callback to the golden age of Hollywood. If there ever was such a thing. That'd be the way to describe it. This picture is dripping with style.
If you like the 30s, it's a feast for the eyes and ears. The threads, the wheels, the lingo, the tunes, and the Art Deco architecture all recreate the era with meticulous detail. It doesn't go nuts with the visuals, mind you. Most of what they work with is easy to recreate in these less stylish modern times, but effort is still put into making it all feel authentic. We don't even have a modern agenda shoved down our throats, which allows the film to just be itself without interruption.
The authenticity even worked its way into Marlowe's cinematography.
Movies from the old days tended to use what some call proscenium shots, where the scene plays out with little to no edits and the actors do everything in one take.
It's a style the movies adopted from live theater, but they don't use it much anymore. These days, a long shot in a movie is considered a novelty rather than the status quo. Leave it to Marlowe to bring it back.
A balance is struck where shots have edits, but they're used as infrequently as possible to make the picture feel more like the way movies used to be.
Yeah, but it's still in color. Isn't film noir supposed to be black and white like what we're doing?
It helps, sure, but if you take the color from this flick, it might lose something.
There's a sequence near the end where Marlowe gets dragged through a series of rooms lit entirely by neon, each one a different color. It's meant to have a surreal, dreamlike quality to it, and the colors are what drive that home.
Yeah, sure, there was probably a way to do it without color, but since color is what we got, I think it works. In order to portray him in this picture, Marlowe is played by Liam Neeson, a man with screen presence for days. Though I gotta confess, I was a little worried at first.
The trailer for Marlowe was cut in such a way that it felt less like a Philip Marlowe mystery and more like Taken in a retro setting. Fortunately, the trailer was a red herring, though this take on Marlowe is still unconventional.
Traditionally, you see, Marlowe is a real bimbo.
A real what now?
A bimbo. That term used to mean tough guys before it got applied to loose women.
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt.
It's no problem.
Anyway, Marlowe's a man's man, especially in a fight, and years spent confronting the dark underside of society has made him deeply cynical. At the same time, though, he's an intellectual, clever enough to know when he's being taken for a ride. He also never lost his sense of right and wrong, though it doesn't always line up with what the law says.
He's a white knight because he chooses to be, even when other schmucks would just throw in the towel.
Neeson's take on Marlowe retains those aspects, but since he's older, the cynicism is replaced with a general sense of weariness, and his empathy is cranked up to make him more of a fatherly figure. He's also extra savvy, not the sort who would fall for the oldest tricks in the book.
It's different from Bogey, sure, but it still retains the important elements that make Marlowe who he is.
Sounds like the movie got a lot right.
Well, it gets the style and the main character right, but unfortunately it's lacking in a few other departments.
You might have noticed that my description of Neeson's Marlowe was a bit vague just then. Well, the reason for that is because we don't really get to know Marlowe's character that well. Any glimpses we get of what Marlowe is like as a person are just that. Glimpses, nothing more. For the whole picture, he's all business, no matter what the circumstances.
All right, he's not a blank slate, but if this were my first meeting with him, would I be able to tell you who he is? I'm not so sure. Of course, a detective story also needs a good mystery. Unfortunately, so does this picture.
No good, huh?
It's a numbers racket, Snazzy, by which I mean it's by the numbers.
This isn't the sort of mystery where the audience can follow the clues along with the detective and try to solve it themselves. Frankly, I'm not even sure there are clues at all. Marlowe just follows a thread until he gets to the end, then he's given a new one to follow until he reaches the end of that. Lather, rinse, repeat. Sometimes he can tie a couple of threads together, but it doesn't make much difference in the long run. Once we get to the big finale where we learn what's really going on, it doesn't feel like it was properly built up to.
Maybe there are some scenes missing?
If there are, it's not just from the investigation. Check this out.
We have this one bit where Marlowe tries sneaking into the Corbata Club and he gets stopped by some aggressive gardeners.
Here's how the scene plays out.
He punches one of the goons, then we're suddenly on an isolated dirt road so Marlowe can meet one of his connections on the force. The fight scene ends before it even starts.
Don't ask me, folks. I didn't cut this reel.
Now the other fights, few as they are, play through to the end, but they still feel like they come and go too quickly. Sure, I know they ain't the point because this ain't an action flick. Maybe the director didn't want any comparisons to Guy Ritchie's take on Sherlock and overcompensated, I don't know. It's just strange to me that this movie treats the few brawls it does have like unwanted stepkids.
You know, I want to like this movie a lot more than I do.
It's got style and authenticity, but the story is rote and not as layered as a mystery ought to be. The saving grace is Marlowe himself, as it usually is, but if you're a newcomer to these stories, this isn't the place to start. You're better off reading the books or watching the classics before trying this one out.
Then again, if there's one thing Marlowe's taught me, it's that some things are just out of my hands, so do what you gotta do. Case closed.
One of these days we need to get some dames in these noir-style videos. Of course, that would require us to know some dames first.
Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.